Hey guys, remember Legends Tomorrow, Season 3, Episode 7, welcome to the jungle, and I was definitely looking forward to this episode. You guys know I've really been enjoying this season overall, and this was another really fun episode. I thought we had a lot of great stuff going on here, but it was also a great episode for characters as well. There were some great character moments in there. We got the return of Gorilla Grodd, just a lot of great stuff going on in this episode, but let's just get right into it. And I love the way this episode starts off. We start off with a squad of soldiers. They're seen traveling through the jungle when they're attacked by this large beast, and this episode very much felt like kind of like King Kong to me, and not just because of Gorilla Grodd, but the setting was like the recent King Kong movie, which I still have yet to see. I actually bought it today for Black Friday, so I probably will review that for you guys very soon once I do get round to it. But I thought this was a really well done opening. We then see on the Wave Rider, Jax and Stein are talking about their experiment on separating Firestorm, how they're going to try to find a way so all of Firestorm can be, can basically go into Jax and he can be one eternal being, and that way Stein can go back home to his family. And like I said, my only complaint about this is I do think they started this just a little bit too early, because if Victor Garber's not leaving the show by this, mid-season finale, I'm very worried this arc is going to get repetitive, because just the way it's going so far, it's fine now, I'm not worried about it, but if he's still here after the season finale, like I said, the original plan that they said is that they're going to keep him on till the end of the season. The way they're writing this, though, it doesn't seem that way. It seems like they're going to let go of him a little bit earlier than that, and again, that could very well be not because of anything contractual-wise, it's mainly because Garber had to. I mean, if you know, Garber is not headlining, but he is taking over David Hyde Pierce's role in Hello Dolly, and obviously that is a huge undertaking, so much so that, you can't really be in two big type productions at once. You have to really commit, and that's kind of why Victor Garber is busy, so, maybe it's just very daunting rehearsals or whatever, but to me, it seems like they're writing this as if they're getting him out of the show earlier than expected. If they're not, though, I don't really know where else this can really go, because it just seems like a lot of repetitive conversations, and I'm really hoping it doesn't veer into that territory, but it definitely is kind of making me just a little bit worried heading into the second half of the season. Right now, it's fine. I'm just, like I said, a little bit worried as we move into the later into the season. But we then see Amaya. She's training when Nate talks to her about approaching Kuwasa, her recently discovered evil granddaughter, and Amaya really wants nothing to do with it. She still is, kind of reeling from the fact that Kuwasa is another one of her great granddaughters, and you can tell that she's telling him she just wants to put it in the back burner. She's just kind of forgetting about it, but she does know that she is going to come in contact with her again one day, so in the back of her mind, it's something that, while she does try to forget, it is definitely something she is thinking about. And I thought this was definitely a very strong episode for Amaya. Maisie Richardson-Sellers is a really great actress, and this episode really did show how good of an actress she really was. I thought she had some really great moments in this episode, and I thought she did a really good job here. But the group then gathers on the bridge, and Mick quickly lets it slip that Zari didn't send Helen of Troy back to Troy. Rather, she took her back to Themyscira, and needless to say, they are not happy about this. Remember, they have been very adamant about the fact that they are not time travelers. They put time back to the way it is. Zari explains herself and shows the team that the historical record didn't change because of the move. What Helen of Troy ends up becoming, that is still her legacy. She just kind of changed, where she was and how it all goes down. So it seems like a good idea now, but it does kind of show that maybe Zari is kind of messing things up. I would not be surprised that they end up going that direction with Zari. And if that's the case, I actually am looking forward to seeing what this character does. I think Tala Ashe's been doing a good job, but the fact that she's a main character, I mean, obviously she is part of the crew, but if she's going to be the one to kind of stir things up and maybe cause a lot more ramifications, it's good because it keeps the show interesting. Normally I get annoyed by something like that, but for a show like this, it keeps things interesting. It takes into a different sort of territory, and I'm interested in seeing really what they do with things like that. So Jackson notices an anachronism in Vietnam in 1968. The group travels back then to investigate. they notice a local staring at them, and they approach her, and she says she'll take the group to see what's happening in the jungle. And Mick and Nate are then walking through the jungle when Nate approaches the former about why he's so grumpy, and Mick reveals that his father actually served Vietnam and he's nervous about running into him. So Nate says he'll buy Mick a 6-pack of beer if they happen to run into his dad, and right as he says that, a group of soldiers then approaches the duo led by none other than Mick's father. So yes, we do meet Mick's father in this episode, which I thought was actually really cool. I like getting more into what we saw with that character. So Nate tells the soldiers that him and Mick are CIA operatives, and Nate pulls Mick to the side to ask him about his father, and that's when Mick tells him that he killed his father while he was actually growing up. So needless to say, this is a very awkward encounter for him. This is like the last person he wants to run into, and yeah, so this is definitely not a good situation. But Jax is back on the Wave Rider. He finds out that somebody ate his pecan pie, and he's freaking out about it. He goes to approach Stein about it. He sees that Stein has traveled through time to bring about Isaac Newton and other scientists through history to help with the equation. And again, things like this I just really do enjoy seeing. It's just a lot of fun to watch. And Victor Garber just does such a great job in this role. Just him telling Isaac Newton that, you know, if he doesn't get the question right, he's going to hit him over the head with an apple. I mean, yes, it's cheesy, and yes, it's silly, but the show acknowledges that it's a little bit dumb, and that it's a little bit ridiculous, and that's something I do like about the show. It's not willing to, you know, it's very self-aware, and it's a different kind of self-aware than some of the other DC shows, and I think that's why Legends is really, you know, kind of being a cut above the rest. And like I said, it's because it just kind of sticks out more, and it's a lot more tongue-in-cheek than the other shows are, and I think that really is what is benefiting the show overall. But the group is then led by the Vietnamese local leads, Zari, Amaya, and Ray, to the location on the Jungle Beast, and tells them that they've arrived. So Nate and Mick then join up with Mick's dad's squad and travel through the jungle when they're approached by another group of soldiers, and the leading soldier says that they've been enlightened and begins firing on Nate and Mick's squad. So Mick and his dad use their flamethrowers to take down the other team, and Zari, Amaya, and Ray are taken to a fortress where it's revealed the Jungle Beast is none other than Gorilla Grodd, and it was really cool to see this character back. I liked the thing we saw with him in the Flash, but I will admit I did think that episode was a bit of a wasted opportunity, so I thought this was definitely a more welcomed addition when it came to the character of Grodd, because I do like Grodd as a character. I just feel these shows have not figured out how to service him well. Here, I thought it worked a lot better. It was a one-off, and it shows that they can do stuff with his character, so I like the way the shows are recycling elements from the other shows that didn't work as well, and finding a way to make them work here. Just the mechanics of it all, I think, is really well done, and I think, again, that's something the show is really excelling at. But the group starts discussing plans for Grodd, and Amaya asks for Ray's shrink Ray, so they're going to try to shrink him down, maybe, so he's not as much of a threat, which, I mean, I guess makes sense. He's such a tall beast, and they have this technology. Why don't they just try to shrink him down? And that's kind of what they're thinking about doing here. So Mick and his dad are then sitting around the fire. His father starts looking at a picture of Mick's mother and talks about starting a family. And back on the Wave Rider, Jax is thinking aloud to Sarah, who's still in a coma after being hurt by Dark. And we see that throughout this episode. It was interesting to see the team have to go on without Sarah. We're so used to Sarah calling the... I mean, yes, obviously it's been a season and a half, but at this point we're so used to Sarah calling the shots that it feels like there's something's missing, and it's supposed to feel the way with this episode. It's not a complaint because you're supposed to feel like something's missing. Sarah really is the glue that holds this team together, and without her, you see the team still is just dysfunctional, but they're not nearly as, you know, well put together as they are when Sarah's in charge. So Ray and Zari locate a communication system that Grodd's been using to control soldiers. They're able to use it to reestablish communications with the team. Jackson Stein then noticed that Gideon is elevating anachronism to level 10, and she pulls up a newspaper headline that shows the world is in the midst of World War III, thanks to Grodd's actions during the Vietnam conflict. So Amaya sneaks into Grodd's fortress with the shrink ray, but Grodd then soon takes control of her, destroys the shrink ray, and Grodd tells Amaya he's trying to help her kind find peace. And in the communication tent, Zari then uncovers Grodd's plan, and he wants to kill the president who had just landed at a nearby airfield. She's stopped at gunpoint by a local who she's able to talk into lowering the gun. The locals then taken over by Grodd, and she knocks out Zari with a pistol whip, and they take Zari out to the middle of the compound where it's shown that Ray and Amaya have also been captured, and Amaya breaks free, approaches Grodd to talk to him in an attempt to negotiate, and she tries convincing him that they can take him to a time before humans where he can live in peace, and to gain his trust, she uses her totem to construct a gorilla and touches Grodd on his chest, and I really like this. I like seeing the bond that Amaya and Grodd kind of had here. They do have very similar, they're both from 1960s. Well, Grodd isn't, but she's from the 1940s, actually not the 60s, she's from the 40s, and, they really do kind of have that bond here, and I definitely did enjoy seeing that. So, guns start firing in the distance. Grodd realizes his compound has been breached. He thinks Amaya, Zari, and Ray had something to do with it, and he claims that they've betrayed him. We see Mick's dad's group are actually the ones infiltrating the compound, and Grodd escapes, revealing his plan to steal the Wave Rider. He wants to steal it completely. He wants to take hostage, and the group of American soldiers gathers everyone, including Nate, Amaya, Ray, and Zari, thinking that they're American dissidents, and hold them at gunpoint, and Jackson stops the President Johnson's convoy, warning them of Grodd's soon arrival, and as some of the soldiers then step out of their vehicles, they step on landmines. The President steps on one to trigger it, but Jackson is able to freeze it so it doesn't explode, and Stein then takes off in the Wave Rider, but Grodd is able to jump on top as it takes off. Sarah wakes from her coma. She enters the bridge, and we think that she's completely okay. However, once she begins talking, we realize she's actually being mind controlled by Grodd. And we've seen this kind of thing before. This is what the influence that Julian was under in last season of The Flash. So it was cool to see Sarah as, a different entity here, but she goes to attack Stein, but is knocked unconscious by Isaac Newton, and the American army that launched an air attack. The Wave Rider is able to maneuver in a way that knocks Grodd off into the fire below, and back at Grodd's compound, Mick has talked his father down from injuring anyone, and the group is able to rendezvous back on the Wave Rider. So I did like the way Mick was able to kind of negotiate with his father here, but Stein and Jackson are talking about continuing their experiment. Stein tells his younger counterpart that he's already carrying the most important part of Firestorm inside of him, and Jackson tells Stein that instead of getting a medal from helping President Johnson cross the minefield, LBJ gave him a recipe for Lady Bird Johnson's famous pecan pie, and I really enjoyed seeing that here. So Sarah wakes up, she's back to herself, with Gideon giving her a clear bill of health, so we don't have to worry about any of that for the crossover, which I really like seeing. So elsewhere, it's revealed that Grodd has actually survived the fall into the napalm, and not only that, but he was transported away by Dark, who these two clearly have some sort of connection with, and that is the way this episode ends. So, like I said, guys, not a ton to talk about with this episode. This was just a really fun episode overall. I do want to talk about where this is going to go with Grodd, though. Is Grodd going to be a more prominent sort of threat this season? Is Dark going to be able to recruit him? Is this really going to go anymore? Or is it just going to be one of those things where it seems like it's going to go somewhere and then it doesn't? That's happened a lot of times on these DC, on these DC shows. So I would not be surprised if they do take it in that direction. But knowing that Dark is the one to recruit him, and knowing how well the show has built up mythology in the past, I would not be surprised if Grodd does become a little bit more prominent, especially now that Kuwasa is seemingly gone. Dark is probably adamant to recruit someone else, so that's probably why he's taking Grodd, and I enjoyed seeing that here. I also thought it was a wise choice to kind of remove Dark from the overall narrative of this episode, because Grodd was such a prominent, figure in this episode that adding Dark to the mix just really would have just overcomplicated things, and I think it was smart for them to, like I said, just take him away from this episode overall. He's still out there, obviously, as we saw at the end of the episode, but I thought it made sense that it wasn't just repetitive, where him and, Nora are fighting, and they get away in the end. I like that we didn't see that here, because we've seen it for 2 episodes now. I thought this was, like I said, a really strong episode for Amaya, though, because Amaya had this really great connection with Grodd, and also gave her this revelation that, hey, Grodd is someone who wasn't born evil. Maybe Kuwasa is the same way. Maybe Kuwasa just turned evil. Maybe there's a way I can get to the good in her, and I can maybe build her up and see if I can use her to my advantage. So I do like where Amaya's head is at, that she's not thinking this as a terrible situation. Sure, she is a descendant of Amaya's, and yes, they do have some sort of connection there, and Sure, it's not a great connection, but knowing the information that she does about Grodd, she's thinking that could apply to Kuwasa, so I'm looking forward to seeing really where this does go. Was Kuwasa born evil? Was Kuwasa someone who turned this way because of a certain sort of enemy? What really is the reason why Kuwasa turned the way she did? So I'm looking forward to seeing really what that's all about. I think that's going to be very interesting. Like I said, I really do only have a few complaints this episode. I really did like the stuff with Mick and his father. Let me just say, I thought that obviously was very strong as well, what we got there. Sarah as well, her whole not being there in the episode, I definitely did feel the void with Sarah not being there, but the show is so strong when it comes to the characters and their chemistry that even when you remove Sarah from the main narrative, this show still functions very well, and it just shows how well established this show really is and how strong it is right now. I mean, this is when you know a show is so strong, when you essentially remove its main leader and the thing that is the headliner of the show. I mean, Sarah, even though there isn't a main character, Sarah probably is the main character of the show, so removing her and the fact that the show is still so strong is very well done. I thought it was a very risky decision, but it really did pay off here. Like I said, really my only complaint in this episode, one, Stein really did not have much to do. They had Isaac Newton here. They just really didn't do too much with him. We had like 2 scenes there, and that was really it. I wish we could have seen more of Stein and his whole gang of scientists that he formed. I thought that was honestly a lot of fun to see, but they didn't really do a ton with it. What we got was still fine. I just didn't think we got enough. And like I said, the Stein and Jax arc, I don't know where they're going with this. I'm hoping that this doesn't stretch out an entire season. They're writing it as if Stein is leaving in the mid-season finale. I'm going to say he's leaving the mid-season finale until we see the mid-season finale and they prove me otherwise, but right now, I'm thinking the mid-season finale will be, Garber's final episode. It just kind of seems like that's the way they're going to go. Either way, guys, like I said, I thought this was another very strong episode, though we got a lot of great stuff going on here, and I'm definitely going to give Legends Tomorrow, Season 3, Episode 7, Welcome to the Jungle, a B+. So what we're guys doing this episode later tomorrow. Let me know what you guys thought of this episode overall. Loved your thoughts in it. Really loving this season overall. Definitely looking forward to the crossover though. As much as I do love the show, I am very excited to see where the crossover does take us. But that's my review. Hope you guys enjoy. I'll see you guys in my next video, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.